Our Las Vegas Grand Prix.
F1 driver ratings. This video is sponsored by the wonderful people over at Squarespace. Hello everybody and welcome back to the P1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. F1 driver ratings edition. Oh yes, we're back once again and we are ready to do a 0 to 10 scale of every driver on the grid. How do we think they performed? Tommy, where do you rate this one in terms of a difficult or not difficult race to grade them all?
It was quite a chaotic race, but at least we didn't have sprints and all that kind of craziness to go in. So I'm sure everyone will agree this time.
So before we dive into all of that, we want to shout out the P1 Live Show End of Season Special UK Tour. London, Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester, Edinburgh, sadly, what does that mean? Sadly sold out. But you can still get tickets for London, Birmingham, Bristol and Manchester. We'd love to see you there. New segments, new vibes, new just energy, beautiful stuff. What a way to end the season, eh, Tommy? You're excited. You're going to be on the stage.
Can't wait.
Mr. Tom Bellingham, just born to be on there, the theatrical performer, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In my element.
Yeah,
but it's going to be a lot of fun.
It.
We always have good fun at the shows, so yeah, I can't wait for it.
So let's dive into the first driver. And it is Kevin Magnussen. Started 12th, finished 12th. I mean, he was actually one of the only drivers to do a one-stop strategy, which I believe may have been the wrong decision, considering he is the only driver to have done it, and his teammates scored points. So 6 out of 10 for Kevin Magnussen. He lost a few places at the start, and I think, look, he said himself after the race that the one-stop wasn't the correct decision. Decided to do something different. Perhaps that was due to the fact he lost some positions at the start, but it's an okay performance. It's a little bit better than 5, so that's why we went for a 6.
I've also gone for a 6 out of 10 for Kevin Magnussen. P12 would be good in days gone by for the Haas, but they're a much better team now. And I think, yeah, the one-stop clearly wasn't the right way to go, but at least he executed it. And there wasn't too many retirements or anything, but his teammate, of course, did get points. So it's a 6.
And the fans also gave K-Mag a 6, all in agreement. If you're looking to create a stunning website, Squarespace is your go-to platform. It's an all-in-one solution that really empowers entrepreneurs. I've been using it, and let me tell you, the experience has been fantastic. One of my favourite features is Design Intelligence. It combines 2 decades of design expertise with AI, helping you craft a personalised website that truly reflects your brand. It's like having a design expert by your side. Then there's Squarespace Payments, where managing transactions is so simple. You can accept a variety of payment methods, making it super convenient for your customers. And let's not forget Blueprint AI. This tool helps you build a custom site in just a few clicks. It takes your basic info and transforms it into a beautifully designed website, complete with curated content that matches your aesthetic. If you want to give it a try, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, check out squarespace.com/P1 to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. Trust me, you won't regret it. Nico Hulkenberg started 9th, finished 8th.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg. I think it's a rare kind of time that Hulkenberg actually moves forward in the race, because normally the qualifying is where he excels. But still a brilliant qualifying, and then to actually move up and finish best of the rest is an absolutely fantastic result, and more what we've kind of expected from him this year, because Magnussen's put in a few good performances recently. So yes, a very, very good drive from Hulkenberg.
A very good drive indeed. I am going to give him, because what more could he have done, a 10! Screw it, why not? I was going to give him a 9, but let's get excited, shall we? Well, I mean, what more could he have done? He finished best of the rest. He's not going to beat the McLarens, the Red Bulls, the Ferraris or the Mercedes. He put it in Q3, as you say, went forward at the start, well, went forward from where he started. And look, let's put some commendation on his name. The only reason I've also gone for a 10 is because there's not really any other 10s, I don't think, going around. So let's put some respect on Hulkenberg's name. Well done, Nico. It's a 10 from me. The fans didn't agree at all. They went for an 8. So speaking of 10s, Zhou Guanyu started 13th, finished 13th. It's not a 10 though. It is a 9. It has to be a 9 for Zhou Guanyu. It is, because I feel like with these numbers and perhaps where some people are like, oh, how did you give this to this person or this to this person? It is we kind of do it relative to where we expect their performance to be as well, right? Like there is part of that understanding there, and this is one of the greatest drives Zhou's ever put in. Not the one of, because he's actually scored points before, but it's unbelievable compared to being the slowest qualifier in the last 8 to then sticking it in Q2, and at one point we genuinely believed that there might be a singular point on the cards for Zhou Guanyu. It didn't work out, but I'm still thoroughly impressed, and I'm giving him a 9.
I've gone for an 8 for Zhou Guanyu.
Disgusting.
I think he did a brilliant job, but he did finish 13th. His qualifying was really, really good. I think most impressively for him, how impressive he was in comparison to Bottas that normally. But yeah, I have gone for an 8 because it was one of his best races of the season for sure.
Okay, so well done to Zhou. The fans gave him a 7. They weren't happy that he managed to haul that dustbin into 13th place. They're like, no, P3 or nothing. Let's go to Valtteri Bottas then, who started 19th and finished 18th.
I have gone for a 4 out of 10 for Valtteri Bottas. I think it's very disappointing where he finished the race and qualified, considering we know him for being the low grip specialist, if you like, and you felt like this was going to be one of those races, and for him to get absolutely, like you say, chefed by Zhou Guanyu is not great for him. A disappointing weekend when it looks like he's not got many Formula One races left in his career.
No, absolutely not. And I've also gone for a 4 out of 10 for Valtteri. I think it was a poor performance. He's supposed to be the low grip god, and sadly he did not deliver at all. And it was his teammate. And look, Bottas has had the upper hand over Zhou the entire season, and for Zhou to then put in a performance like that, you then wonder, okay, well, where could this Sauber have got this weekend? But Bottas did not deliver whatsoever, and that's why I've gone for a 4. The fans gave him a 5. Let's go to Yuki Tsunoda. Started 7th, finished 9th. I have gone for a 9 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda. I think it was a brilliant weekend the whole way through. Like, qualifying 7th is pretty unbelievable. But then the characteristics of the track did allow for some great performances to come through. Don't forget Gasly getting up to 3rd in an Alpine, but still scored points, and I think, yeah, he was happy, despite obviously still losing points in the Constructors' Championship. But Yuki doing a much better job than his teammate as well this weekend, and I think thoroughly deserves a 9 out of 10. So do I.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda. It would probably be a 10 if he'd it would have been a 10 if he'd have beaten Nico Hulkenberg. They had a great battle, and yeah, Yuki I think was brilliant in qualifying in particular, and then the race when you can see that the V-carb wasn't all that. Lawson didn't look very impressive at all this weekend, and I think Yuki is delivering at a very good time when there could have been a huge amount of pressure on him with Lawson coming in and all the stuff that Horner's said about, look, Lawson might get a seat at the big team if he does well, and Yuki has done a fantastic job and done an amazing job under pressure, and what a performance, and helps RB in the Constructors' title as well, because they are locked in that titanic battle for 6th.
They really are. The fans gave Yuki Tsunoda an 8. Liam Lawson started 14th, finished 16th.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Liam Lawson. I think it is one of those performances where he's probably done about... is not near his teammate, and his teammate's obviously done an exceptional job. I expected more from him, but it's not absolutely awful weekend. He's just not really delivered in the RB, which is very much in that midfield pack. He got his elbows out with a battle with Magnussen, twice, actually. I still can't believe that him, Perez and Magnussen went through wide into a corner and there was no damage. But yeah, 5 from Lawson. Underwhelming, I think.
Indeed. I have also gone for a 5 out of 10 for Liam Lawson. I think underwhelming sums it up pretty well. Lawson, of course, coming in, having some great performances and really getting the attention of the media and everybody else. Where's he going to go? Is he going to get the Red Bull seat, etc., etc.? But whether that's the case within the teams, we don't know. But in the media, you're a star one week and you can be completely anonymous the next. And this is a really important time for Lawson with only 2 races to go. Because having media backing, having people talking about you can help in situations where teams are deciding who to go with, and you need to have audience sentiment behind you. And if Lawson has a kind of anonymous next couple of races, then it might not work in his favour of where he ends up if, moving forward. So it's interesting. But Lawson, he's had some great performances, so it's not like this is a disaster. By no means was it a disaster, but it was a very anonymous weekend, I would say, for Lawson, while his teammate Tsunoda, who's trying to get a Red Bull seat, shone. The fans gave Liam Lawson a 5. Franco Colapinto started the race from the pit lane because he obliterated his car and finished in 14th. This is a hard one. I'm going to go for a 5 out of 10 for Franco. I may have even given him a 6, perhaps without the obliteration, a 7, but he just destroyed that car again in qualifying, and I have to downgrade him because of that. He did have a reasonably solid race. There wasn't any safety cars for him to really take advantage of after starting from the pit lane, but it's just a case of like another mistake for Franco that he really doesn't need whilst he's having these conversations with teams about where he might go, especially Red Bull very interested in him. He has a whole country behind him, so that won't change. But Franco, needs to just rein back on the mistakes a little bit. I think for the next 2 races, if Franco can do that, then we'll forget about these obliterations. Maybe the Williams finance people won't, but he needs to stop crashing the car now.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Franco Colapinto as well. It's absolutely gutting, really, that he's crashed it in qualifying because he had out-qualified him, but of course started from the pit lane. And if he'd have just finished that lap, even just finished 14th and not improved it without the damage to the car, it would have been another weekend where we talk about him beating Albon in qualifying. And I do think unfairly he's got this reputation as being a crasher. He kind of needs to go into these last 2 races, beat Albon, have a solid results again, because the last 2, when he was so hyped up, and rightly so, he needs to kind of have the clean weekends because teams like that as well, because we know how much pressure is on Williams, and you saw the distraught look on the mechanics' faces when they saw him go into the wall again.
Yes, it was a tough watch. The fans gave Franco a 5 as well. Alex Albon started 17th, did not finish.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Alex Albon as well. I think he obviously had a disappointing qualifying. I know he had a tough weekend with what happened in free practice 3. He was running up in the points at one point when he retired, but looking at his the old tyre graphic and where he actually pitted, he pitted very early on lap 9, so he would have had to have made another stop. And for me, I know he himself said he thought points were on the cards, but if he'd have had to make another stop, he was never going to the end on those tyres. I think he would have probably finished roughly around Zhou Guanyu.
Okay, well, I'm going to give him a 6 because I'm going to give a nod to him with the fact that, look, he's had a really difficult weekend. Williams obviously repairing everything, and it wasn't working out on Albon's car. Tried to get on FP2, I think it was, and then it conked out. And I think this track in particular, with how low grip and the conditions, you really do need that sort of practice under your belt. And he was, in my opinion, right in there, and that would have been, a really good performance had his car actually got to the end. So I'm going to give a nod to him because he didn't obliterate his car. He's just had a lot of problems with just the car working, and fair enough. I mean, I'm not surprised if Williams are having to repair so many bits. Of course, some things are going to fail. So it's a slight nod to that. So it's a 6 from me. The fans gave him a 5. Esteban Ocon started 11th, finished 17th. So I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10, Ocon. I know he finished 17th, but partly due to Alpine not having a clue what they're doing with their pit crew, because he was fighting Hulkenberg at one point. Let's see where Hulkenberg finished. And, he finished in the points. And Ocon was told, box opposite Hulkenberg. So what does he do? Hulkenberg carries on. Ocon comes into the pits. Driving down the pit lane, there's one Alpine mechanic to greet him. Okay, I'll just carry on then, shall I? Basically gives himself a drive-through penalty. I love how Ocon is known for the sort of 5-second penalty for Ocon. He literally just delivered himself a drive-through penalty for no reason.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. Qualifying compared to his teammate, I think that was obviously more that his teammate did an exceptional job than him doing a particularly bad job, but missed out in Q3. And then in his race, tried the one stop. Of course, the mistake in the pits wasn't his fault, but didn't work for him in the one stop. So a race to forget, because Gasly, of course, retired with the mechanical failure, but you've got to think what might have been for Alpine and Ocon himself. If they've executed a better race, definitely points could have been on the card.
The fans gave Ocon a 5. Pierre Gasly started 3rd, did not finish.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. It's a very difficult one. I think this is probably one of the most difficult ones to grade, because his qualifying was absolutely exceptional. One of the best performances of the year, without doubt, to get an Alpine into P3. And then he was never going to beat the top teams, but maybe he could have finished behind Norris on the road, beaten Piastri, and he maybe would have got a grade higher. But of course, it's difficult to know when there's still a good chunk of laps. But of course, it wasn't his fault that he retired, so that's why I've gone for an 8.
Okay, I've also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. I think it sums up what could have been kind of race, because starting 3rd, we're pretty much set on for a nice cheeky little 10 out of 10 for Gasly, and he was driving really well. And then reports he has no power. The team are like, nah, it's fine. No, you're all good. And he's like, I literally have no power. And sadly from there, it was game over. So yeah, shame for Gasly, because he had such a high yesterday, as he said, and to not finish is a gut punch for sure. The fans gave Gasly an 8 as well. Lance Stroll started 18th, finished 15th. I'm going to go for a 5 out of 10 for Lance Stroll, because, there's no gravel traps and he didn't drive into them, so that's a solid 5 from me. Very anonymous, though, for Lance. Of course, I think he had some problems in qualifying, so he went out there and he did one lap. But still, he actually reckoned he could have finished 12th, but he had some radio issues which caused a slow stop, because the team weren't ready for him either. It's just absolute chaos around Vegas. We had 3 different random pit errors for different reasons, but it's a 5. Lance, cheers, mate. Take care.
Yeah, I've gone for a 5 for Lance Stroll as well. He had no radio seemingly the whole race, what it was alluding to, which is quite a mad thing to happen. But again, let down in qualifying, but that car is just woeful now. The downfall of Aston Martin is crazy. To say that they've got all this hype around them and everything, they're just desperate to get to 2025, I'm sure.
They certainly are. The fans gave Lance a 4. Fernando Alonso started 16th, finished 11th.
I have gone for a 7 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso.
You seem very confident. You wanted to give him a 10, didn't you?
No, I was umming and ahhing between a 6 and a 7, but I think I have to look at the dreadfulness, if that's a word, of the Aston Martin now. And he was pretty close to points, beating some cars there that probably shouldn't have in the car that he had, and where it seems like Aston Martin are. Unlucky not to get points, and what a bizarre strategy he did.
I have gone for a 7 as well, so you're not being a fanboy, because he finished 11th in a car that we have to shift our perceptions of that shouldn't really even potentially be there, and with that weird strategy as well. Who knows if he could have scored a point in the end, but it's a 7. It's a solid performance from Alonso, but it's not where any of us want to see him. The fans absolutely disgusted by his performance. They gave him a 5. So fair enough. What can Fernando do? Oscar Piastri started 8th, finished 7th. It was a pretty poor performance from Oscar. I'm going to give him. Is it poor? Is it bad? Is it middle? Is it 5 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri? He would have finished 25 seconds, maybe more, behind Lando in a McLaren that, yes, did struggle, but I think Oscar. It's a shame to see that he hasn't been able to really continue that momentum of looking like he was almost being the better driver at McLaren and having these amazing performances, winning twice this year. He's kind of become a bit quiet recently, and it's a shame that he's only in his second season still, and that is a very unique track condition that's going on. So I'm sure he's still learning to really get the optimum pace in every condition at every track, but I have to give him a 5 because it was a very anonymous race. He would have been probably, as I say, beaten by Gasly, I reckon, and of course got a penalty as well for a false start, just slightly out of his grid box. It is a mistake, albeit a very minor one. So yeah, it's a 5 from me.
I've also gone for a 5 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri. Another disappointing race. I really hope that he kind of delivers something in Qatar, because he's had quite a run of races now where not really been on it, other than the sprint, of course, in Brazil, which he would have won without the teammate switch. Yeah, disappointing for him to be that far behind Lando, caught in the pack as well. Not the best start, little error, and still a decent-ish result, but McLaren are gonna need Oscar to really pick up his performances and how he's been recently if they're gonna really just convincingly win this Constructors' Championship, I think.
Yeah, and when you say decent-ish, you mean that he finished 7th, but in the reality of it being in a McLaren and the drivers behind him are Hulkenberg, Tsunoda and Perez, that's what you mean by that, because I think people will get confused giving him a 5 and then saying decent. The fans gave Oscar a 6. Lando Norris started 6th, finished 6th.
I've gone for a 7 for Lando Norris. He didn't have the car this weekend. It was, like I said, probably the 4th fastest car. I think that he, of course, got the maximum result, probably for the 4th fastest car, but I think the top drivers that we've seen, Verstappen, for example, hasn't had the car either, and he's mixed it up with the Ferraris and things during the race, whereas Lando was sort of fighting Gasly at the start and things like that, and didn't look really anywhere near challenging those kind of top teams. It was very anonymous from Lando to say that he still technically was in the title fight, and that was the race where it kind of ended, but it was very much a foregone conclusion, wasn't it?
It was. I've also gone for a 7 for Lando. It was a much better weekend overall than Oscar in terms of pace. I think it's just that Oscar's able to finish behind him due to the fact no other team can really challenge these front 4 teams. But yeah, Lando was in the mix, but just fell away. And yeah, they've really struggled with the tyres, it seemed. So it's a 7 from me. The fans gave him a 6. Carlos Sainz started 2nd, finished 3rd. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. It was a very strong weekend once again. From the first minute of practice all the way through to the race, he showed very decent pace, quicker than Leclerc in qualifying, putting himself on the front row. And then just struggled at the end of the first stint, and also with the tyres, Ferrari in general. I mean, we'll get onto Leclerc shortly, but with Sainz, I think it was a really good weekend once again, and I'm glad to see that he's finishing his Ferrari career on a high and not just slower than Leclerc, and he's challenging. And for those that are saying about the whole not playing the team orders and things like that, it's Carlos. He's a tenacious driver, and with only a couple of races to go, if you put yourself in his position, do you do the same thing? I don't know, because on one side you go, do you try and show that you're a team player, and the fact that he's been told not to challenge Charles, perhaps that's what you need to do. But on the other side, he wants a podium, and he got it.
Carlos, I've gone for a 9 out of 10. I think he had a great race think he was the quicker Ferrari driver this weekend. Of course, there was some controversy over the passing. I don't know. Listening to it back, and maybe there's more radio, and this is maybe what a driver like Carlos Sainz will do, and other drivers like him. His radio message was, "Don't put Charles under pressure," and him just breezing past very easily while Charles had his tyre temperatures, you could argue, isn't putting him under pressure. So is it just Carlos interpreting the radio message? It didn't, almost like your papaya rules with Oscar Piastri going around the outside of Lando at Monza.
But what I will suggest to counteract that is that Charles said after the race that there is a agreement before going even out on track. Like, this isn't a thing that was done on the
Charles would win,
off the cuff.
The Charles would beat him.
No, but he's obviously very angry about the fact that he's been passed after coming out the pits, and that was what he was saying, is that there was an agreement before the race, whatever that might be. He didn't go into detail, but that's where the anger is from, not the fact that this team radio, perhaps there was... Look, Carlos has seen an opportunity, he's gone for it, he's a racing driver, and that's the story.
But either way, I think Carlos would have probably finished ahead anyway without his kind of weird pit lane moment. And would have been fine. So I think he was the better driver this weekend. So I've gone for a 9.
All right. I'll swallow that pill. The fans gave Carlos an 8. Charles Leclerc started 4th, finished 4th.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. An impressive performance from him, getting kind of what we'd seen from the start of the year. I think Ferrari had the second quickest car, and he's finished P4 behind his teammate, so it's certainly not a bad drive, but we normally see Charles as the quicker driver, particularly in qualifying, to be beaten that comprehensively. Of course, made a great start, and that's where I thought he might have gone on to potentially challenge for P2, or at least got a P3 maybe. It was obviously, of course, very close with his teammate, but I can't give him the same grade because I think Carlos was the better driver this weekend.
Cool. Your thoughts are one thing, and I've gone for an 8 for Charles as well. Both of the Ferrari drivers, I think, had good and slightly downgrading moments of the weekend. Charles, of course, not as great in qualifying, but had an incredible start, got himself in the mix, then pushed too hard on the tyres, which he fell back so much. But then the hard tyre stint was fantastic, that next one, because he got right back in the mix again and was finishing, 2 seconds behind Sainz at the end. So I think it was pretty negligible between the two of them. And look, Charles, we've never seen a blow up like that from Charles Leclerc ever, by not even close, right? So that's what makes me think that there was an understanding and an agreement before the race, because you don't see Charles blow up over that, especially over a P3. He was wanting to challenge Lando in the Drivers' Championship as well. So maybe there was conversations there of trying to get P2 and runner-up. I don't know, because this is all behind closed doors. But I think Charles and Carlos both did a great weekend, and they both deserve 8 out of 10s. And the fans also gave him an 8. George Russell started first, finished first. It is a 10 out of 10 for George Russell. Dominated from start to finish. He pulled an unbelievable first stint. The way he managed his tyres was phenomenal, because that won him the race right there and then. Without that impressive medium stint at the start, perhaps we see Hamilton fighting him at the end. But George kept his tyres in a beautiful window, and it's just a perfect weekend. Getting pole, winning the race, and really making a statement, I would say, as well.
I've gone for a 10 out of 10 for George as well. Absolutely incredible weekend from him. The top drivers, and they basically, when you get one opportunity to have a very quick car, which Mercedes haven't had for a very long time, he's absolutely made the most of it. Look, qualifying looked never in doubt that he was going to get pole, and then he's comfortably won the race. And he's just measured it perfectly, and that is kind of, I think a lot of people have now stood up and gone, oh yeah, George can lead this team and do well, and people realizing that he has been somewhat underrated by everyone and forgotten about, because I know George himself has kind of made some comments after the race that he kind of said, we need to be challenging Max, because I know I can do it, and that's what it's that self-confidence that all top and great drivers have.
The fans also gave George a 10, unsurprisingly. Lewis Hamilton started 10th, finished 2nd.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. It was a 10 out of 10 race drive from him, but qualifying was so poor to not get either lap in, and he can say that he would have walked it or whatever he said.
Would have been
was
a
to that
breeze, I think he
extent,
said,
breezed it, if he'd have had a better qualifying, but he didn't, and 2 mistakes on that lap is what might have been, but it was another showcase of when it comes to the Grand Prix, Hamilton is still got it.
I've also gone for a 9 out of 10. If you just take the race, it's a 10. If he had a problem in qualifying that wasn't due to his own errors, then it's still a 10. But sadly, he started at the back of Q3 in P10. So the race itself was amazing. You could kind of see as he was picking drivers off that, Hamilton's dialed in, and we could see him on the podium. And to finish 2nd from there just shows the performance that Mercedes car had, and Hamilton and Russell were both able to take full advantage of that. A 1-2. It is that same story with Hamilton in qualifying, just cannot get his head around the car, but in the races he is phenomenal, and I think that will be a similar trend maybe going into next year. For his sake, I hope he figures out qualifying and he can be up there fighting for victories and podiums all the time, but that's something he's going to have to sort out, and maybe with the Ferrari, different characteristics of car, maybe that's the change he needs to dial himself back in on a Saturday. The fans gave Lewis a 9. Sergio Perez started 15th, finished 10th. It's a 4 out of 10 for Checo. His teammate wins the Drivers' Championship. Checo comes home with a singular point. He was knocked out in Q1, which is just not good enough, as we always say, and it is a similar story. Had a pretty good drive in the sense of there were some highlight reel moments. The double overtake was juicy, beautiful, but you're fighting cars you shouldn't be fighting. So as much as it's impressive and amazing to watch, he shouldn't be there in the first place.
Gone for a 4 out of 10 for Sergio Perez as well. He qualifying to go out in Q1, just disastrous. And he's put in some daring overtakes to one of the best overtakes of the race, an incredible watch, one of those overtakes that make you kind of think, oh, this is going to end horribly wrong, particularly when it's against Lawson and Magnussen. So for them to go 3 wide into a corner, sensational move, but he's racing cars that he shouldn't be racing, an RB and a Haas, and he's finishing behind an RB in Tsunoda. And
a Haas in
Hulkenberg. Yeah, exactly. So he's, when his teammate's winning the World Championship, there's now, you do wonder, now there's talks of it's very clear they're going to not win the Constructors' Championship. There was a lot of talk afterwards on Sky and with the talking about the team that, of course, while we mention the big dogs get that celebration of Max winning the title and the publicity for Red Bull is huge, the mechanics and everyone that works in Red Bull are missing out on bonuses and things like that because they haven't delivered, and that is down to Perez's performance because it's just not been good enough.
The fans gave Perez a 4. Max Verstappen started 5th, finished 5th.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Max Verstappen. Weirdly, almost summarised his season, that race, of he ended up kind of driving. I can't believe he was in 2nd place at one point during that race and looking like he might even challenge for the victory, but ultimately the Red Bull pace wasn't there and he's kind of dropped back. It sums it up that he's kind of summed up this latter part of the season that even though the car is not there, he's just done everything he needed to do, picked his battles, wasn't worth fighting the Ferraris. Towards the end may have got a podium, but it was never in that fight with the Ferraris, and did what he needed to do in finishing ahead of the McLarens. And such an impressive championship bid, and I think he's getting the praise that he deserves.
Lovely stuff. I have gone for a 9 out of 10 for Max Verstappen. I think it was almost... Well, it was a really impressive drive. To get up to P2 at one point, yes, that was the Ferrari dropping off, but Max, as always, was there to capitalise. And at one point, we're going, can he win the race? Like this is crazy bit of improvement that he was showing. And also, the reason I'm giving him a 9 as well is that Red Bull brought the wrong spec of car. So Max as well, he's fighting around this.
Did he?
Yeah, so he's fighting around these problems as well. You've got basically a paper mache cut your own rear wing out, which they were modifying the car where they could.
You convinced me to give him a 9 now.
I knew it. As soon as I said about the rear wing and the spec, you were like, all right, 12, I was like, 12 out of 10.
Fair. Yeah, because he was on the back foot. I think you've mentioned this at the start of the show, that the drivers, we're almost like rating the drivers that you expect, and it's been a strange one to kind of grade Max this year, because we've had 3 years of him finishing races miles ahead of the field. So when he is fifth and he's so far ahead of your teammate, it's kind of what's more impressive. Whereas, like if other people were doing it, you'd give him higher grades probably because of it. So fair, 9.
Tommy's like, any excuse whatsoever to grade Max higher. Lovely stuff. Okay, the fans didn't agree. They went for an 8 out of 10. So there you go. So finally, who is our P1? It has to be George Russell by a country mile for me. Just such an impressive performance, and I think he's able to put himself in these positions with his incredible qualifying. Yeah, his race pace is slightly under question when up against Hamilton, but if you've got Antonelli in the car next year, I think Russell will still be the fastest in over both qualifying and race into 2025. And if Mercedes are able to produce a car that's really solid and decent, George can win races. And I think he's got the mentality to challenge for titles as well.
I've also gone for George Russell. It's 100%. It's one of the easiest decisions I've ever had for P1. He was absolutely sensational. You mentioned about him being level-headed and able to challenge for a title. I think he's also got that ruthless side to him as well that others maybe don't have, that I think would come out in a title fight as well. And I'd love to see it happen, because I think he would. He has that level-headedness, but he's not afraid to get his elbows out, and what we've said before about other drivers maybe needing to be a bit more feared and get their elbows out and shove people wide and stuff. I feel like George Russell is definitely one of those people that would do that. So sensational drive, fantastic timing as well, to make a big statement when people are maybe questioning Mercedes and can he lead that team going into next year. What a statement from him. Really good.
Absolutely. So congratulations, George Russell. And obviously congratulations, Max Verstappen, as well, for winning a 4th world title. Just ridiculously good. And teams and drivers are going to have to sort themselves out going into 2025 and beyond if you don't want to see Max win another 3 or 4 until he decides to be like, no, I'm done with racing now. So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this beautiful P1 journey through the triple header, the final one. But we're back into race week. It's Qatar, and there's no rest for the wicked. We'll be back again live on Twitch, Matt P1 Tommy. Don't forget to go get your P1 live show tickets in the UK for the middle of December if you haven't already. Right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You thought I forgot about you? Well, I didn't. Why don't you put your items in shared spaces like the living room away in their proper places? Yep, that's on bungalow.com.